And hello again from Bannvale. I put a post up today about the importance of home and what I believed home was. And here I am in Bannvale. That was where the Poltridges lived, who were very strange people. And a very nice lady and her husband, the Crawfords, lived there more lately. That is 22 Bannvale. And my room used to be the one with the two windows, but it only had one window back when I stayed in it. The tree that was little when we moved in is now a massive trunk which blew down in one of the storms. And these are the rugby pitches for the school I went to, Corinst. This was the seconds and the thirds played. The seconds, thirds and fourths played on the East Fields. And you can just see in the distance next year's people. Where are they? There they are. Ooh. There we go. Next year's teams are out practicing in the summertime. Now, there always seems to be a seagull on the top of this lamppost. When I played for the seconds and the thirds, his name was Cedric. It's probably the great grandson of Cedric, and there he goes. But he always used to sit there, and you'll notice the fence is full of holes, because rather than walk round to the ground, kids from Bannvale and Ballycairn would just find a hole in the fence and go through it. It was frowned upon. But between those two sets of rugby posts, which is the end of the thirds and the beginning of the seconds, we used to play football there in the summer. And it was one of those games where you would do 120 goals, but it was always the last one to score won. And we used to know when we were growing up, most of the people who lived in the houses in Bannvale. Oh, hello. Woof woof. In fact, because it was so close to Inst, a lot of these houses belonged to teachers. And up at the top here, that was Dan Archer. He taught me chemistry. God love him. I don't think I broke him. And the house over here behind the house trees is where the Watsons lived, who were around my age, and but they were Harriers. They didn't play rugby. And then behind these trees we had, if memory serves correctly, you had the Hendersons behind the big trees, the McMasters in the house next to it. Probably get a view around the corner here. That's the McMaster's house, the top of the hill, and beside it is the Hendersons. He was also a teacher. And then, as we walk along here, you had Mr. Shaw was in that house up there. And moving along in Bannvale we had Mr. Birch, very famous rugby coach. And we're just coming up to my first house. This house belonged to a family called the Clotworthys, who we kind of grew up together. this is number 19. It used to be called Ulvik. Still there, still going strong. And up there was for a friend of mine, whose name escapes me for the minute, Jimmy Doherty lived. And then the Williams moved in, and Janet earned pocket money babysitting their children. And that belonged to the Count, one of the most feared teachers at school. He was an English teacher, Mr. Montgomery, who ruled his classes with a rod of iron. That was Dr. Forbes's house, but whenever he sold up and moved on, that became the Wallace's house, where Linda and Peter lived. And up there, behind this fence, used to be a tennis court and a big house that was owned by the Kennedys, a well-known building firm. But since they have all now either passed on or gone, it's been sold and they're making townhouses. And this is the Ballycairn Road. And it's famous for a lot of things, not just because I grew up here. That's the wee forest, and that pipe coming out. I did my A-level biology project on planaria, which are little flatworms that lived in that little stream, and the effect of temperature and pH. Hiya. Up there, and there's a hole where the boarding department used to be, is Corinne's. And here's the running track, tennis courts, and over there is the medallion, the War Memorial Pavilion with the medallion gym behind it. Coleraine Inst was a great institution. It's now called Coleraine Grammar because it amalgamated with the Coleraine High School where Janet and Ruth went, and has become one big school now. And behind that, the tower block, is the County Hall for Londonderry. And down this little road, private road, takes you all the way to the river and the rowing pavilion. Coleraine Inst is one of the top rowing schools in, well, both the UK and Ireland. Hello there. And that is where I learned to skateboard. Starts off Gentle Hill, just down beyond where that chap is. It's a very steep hill, and you could get up to about 40 miles an hour before you fell in the river, which I wouldn't like to say happened often, but yeah, it happened often. And this is Riverview. There's a little alleyway at the bottom which my sisters never went to. It was known as Smoker's Alley because it's where you went to catch a crafty wee cigarette after school. There used to be an ice cream van was parked at the top. Now, up there behind the trees is where I went to school. My sisters had to do this walk every day in their, and I apologise for saying this, hideous green uniform, bottle green. I think it was designed as a form of contraception. It really was hideous. And stripy grey shirts. They would walk up here and across town. It's probably about 2 miles, and they would have to walk that every day, rain or shine. And I was being smug, and I only had to walk 150 yards. It's gone now, being replaced by a cable internet box. But the letterbox is still there. There used to be a seat here. And you can still sit on the internet. Anyway, I'm constricting the internet. But we used to sit here, my friends Derek and Ewan and I used to sit here and put the world to rights. But the main reason we sat here was just up the road past the Inns, there's the Loretto Convent, and they would walk past here most afternoons and in the evening. And we were always game for a chance, just in case a convent girl took a fancy to us. And up there, my father was both a teacher and a housemaster. Quite a big boarding department. That block of townhouses used to be the model school, and my father was the housemaster of Kerry House, which was in that. Generations of boys will recognise the name Bomba, if not Mr. McDonough, as a master. That's a bit of the old school, dating back to the 1800s. And this bit of grass at the front is the second 11 cricket pitch. The first 11 cricket pitches over there in the distance. And these trees have been up. Not sure if sycamore and conker trees have been up mostly since the school was founded. They have been replaced if they fell down. Every time there was a big storm, we used to see how many trees had fallen down along this. And seldom, if ever, were ones that went. I apologise for the car noise. And this is the Ballycairn road. Hasn't really changed that much, to be honest. I think it's another picture of the boarding school. That used to be at the bottom of that building. You can just see through the trees was room 3, where Mr. Richard Bennett taught history to reprobates like me in second form. He went on to be the headmaster of a very famous school in Enniskillen called Petora. And just here where it says school keep clear at this barrier is where the ice cream man used to come. And he always used to come just as school got out. And he always had the biggest queues. You see some of the trees here have gone from back in the day. But it was one of the fields here when the boarders came out of the boarding school, which was up there. In the winter time, they would make handmade toboggans out of the trays from the dining room and come down this little hill at a rate of knots to hit the wall at the bottom. Coleraine Inns was famous for the fact we had stripy blazers. Red, white and blue stripy blazers. And since the amalgamation, we've still got stripy blazers. But there's horrible bottle green in there. And I'm one of those old guys that go and complain. It's not the same. Whenever I went then, there were getting on for 1,500 boys at the school. But things change. The dining hall was in that gap up there, and when Mum was in the Mary Rankin, the local maternity unit, having Janet, I'm alleged, I can't remember, to have gone up, and my father was sitting at the teacher's table at the top in front of the boarding school, and I was sat between him and the headmaster, Dr. Humphreys. Now Dr. Humphreys reminded me of this when I was 18, but I turned round to him in the middle of tea and said, "Hello, Humph, do you teach at my daddy's school?" And he reminded me of this at our leaving interview. So we're coming along past what used to be Kennedy's. Behind this fence, it's got to be built up. And then another teacher, Mr. Leslie, lived in the house there. And Mr. Kyle, who was quite famous sportsman, lived in the house next door there. There was a young lady who lived in the next house. I can't remember her name, but she was a good deal older than us. And we all had what we say in Northern Ireland, a notion for her. And then that's the Williams and Doherty's before. The Clotworthys. There's an older brother whose name escapes me, and an older sister likewise. And a younger daughter called Una was my age, or Janet's age, I can't remember. There's Mr. Shaw's house. He had the reddest of red hairs. Hence the name Curly Wire. Oh, nice and cool in the shade. Still quite warm in the sunshine. Davy Boyd's house was that one, and the McMaster's was that one. Where am I getting this from? Like 60 years ago? Huh. Well, 50 years ago. So we all moved away. The Watsons lived in there. That was the Henderson's house. And a family named Scott lived in there, who were quite a lot older than me. And then, this is Paul's Lane. The houses here beside it are in Paul's Field, which used to be just field. And we used to come out with buckets of water from the Hendersons and McMasters and run it down this hill whenever it was freezing. We got into quite a bit of trouble because we basically made enormous slides. Mr. Paul, who owned the farm, couldn't get his car out of. Oops. And these are all new since the McDonoughs left. Or at least since I left. I don't know anybody who lived in there. Mr. Foote, another teacher, lived in that house. Sam Clements, good friend of my father and fellow maths teacher, lived in the end house. Hiya. And up at the house at the end of this little lane, number 44, 44, was where the Caswells lived, who had the nickname Holy Joe at school. He was a RE teacher and had two very buttoned down daughters who went on to be teachers. And then the house, when they moved away, the house was bought over by Peter Wallace and his wife, who were ex-Ballycairners. Greenhill Road. Takes you up onto Banvale. And family friend Enid lived off to the road on the right. Auntie Enid, as was. And then if we go on down here a wee bit, we'll come to the German houses. I remember there was a family moved into this house from somewhere in Africa, and when their friends heard they were moving from Northern Ireland, they went, "Oh my God, Northern Ireland, you're all going to die." Turned out they didn't. But these are the German houses. There's a big factory near Bannvale, owned by a company called, or used to be owned by a company called Hoist, who were Germans. And Hoist built all these houses along here that you see poking out. And they were quite a different style to normal houses that we would get round here. They had this sort of almost chopped off bit at the front, which I'm told makes them look very German. That's a Northern Ireland house. And Janet might remember, but there was a big, tall German lassie came to school with us. And let's just say, she suddenly, all the 11-year-old boys at primary school suddenly got interested in girls. Don't know why. But this used to be the top of a road called Fisherman's Lane, which, if you go all the way down at the bottom, you come to a gate which leads into the old Korean sewage works. Oh, don't tell you don't learn things when you watch these videos. And there were several little laneways off this, and my friends and I would go out and we'd dig worms first thing in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we would go off and try and catch fish, if not in the big rivers, the wee rivers that run around here as well. Now over there, that is where the heirs lived. A maths teacher taught me maths for A level, and down at the bottom is where my friend Nigel McComb lived when he was growing up. And eventually, like, number 19 used to be the last house on this road until the farm at the top of the hill, and now that was back in the 60s, and now it's built on right the way up to here, Banvale, and a bit beyond as well. Just thinking, Mr. Eyre, who was my maths teacher, his wife Sylvia, they were both Methodists, and his wife Sylvia was basically a force of nature, and unfortunately she's the person that put me off singing children's Bible hymns. I never want to hear "Jesus wants me for a sunbeam" ever again because of her. And this isn't really the end of Ballycairn. You can walk all the way up this road, round and back down past the school. So I'm going to turn now. Oh, I'm not going to get run down in the process. This wall, behind this wall, and I don't think we can see in, there was an old house, and for the longest time we thought the lady who lived there was a witch. Like, to us at 10, 11, she was old. She was probably in her 40s, I see 3 in there. Oh, it's all super overgrown now. And she kept chickens. And yeah, that's where the house used to be. You can still make out a few of the low walls, but the house has fallen down. But she used to come out and scream at us whenever we were going fishing. So, needless to say, oh, she's a witch. But probably just a woman living out their life in a wee house. Oh, stop, let the car in. Suddenly had this urge to say, look both ways, then look again. I was in the Tufty Club, as were my sisters. I would never want to be considered to be anything like Willie Weasel, because PC Badger would come and grab you and take you off to jail. It's just odd, since my last couple of videos have all had water in them, and the only water we've seen so far is the wee dribble that comes out in the stream in the forest, which actually goes down to what used to be the piggery. And Janet Ruth will remember our dog Patch. The school kept pigs, grew them up, and then would sell them, have them slaughtered, sell them for bacon, and use some of the bacon in the boarding school. But if Patch got off the lead, he would be down there like a rocket, and would roll in the pig manure, and it would be one of us kids' job to take a hose to him and use the best and smelliest shampoo that we could find to clean the pig shit off him. There were times when being around Patch was not the most pleasant. He also rolled in the tar when they were re-tarmacking the road. That didn't smell as bad, but it was a lot harder to get out. And then behind this fence is what used to be the BKS, who were aerial photography people. Hello there.
Great evening.
Isn't it just not as warm as earlier? And BKS was aerial photography. Long before there were drones, they would be hired to make aerial maps of all over the place, all over the world. A couple of friends who worked on there. It's now all closed up, as drones now do all the work. And we actually, our house, number 22, is just over there. We could see into it. And like a lot of places now, it's all overgrown and forgotten about. BKS. And then, last but not least, because I parked the car in front of it, the DH Memorial, Christie Memorial School. Now, I was old enough to have gone to the Irish Society, and then about 1967, 68, they opened up this new school. And Janet Ruth and I transferred over, and Janet Ruth and I went here. I went for a couple of years, but it was a great wee school. Miss Morrison was the headmistress. Oh, she was a targe. It was the highest water. And this is the staff car park. Why they haven't closed the gate, I'm not sure. But our house number 22, our back garden, we could climb over the fence and play in the playgrounds. And a lot of the skipping games that my sisters would do, they learned from in here. That was very much a playground for the local kids. There was climbing frames and all sorts of stuff. There's the car. I'll just walk a little bit further. If I remember rightly. The bike shed's still there. And that's the assembly hall. You can just see the door, back door to the assembly hall. That's where Miss Morrison had us do our pieces for the fish. And just to scare my sisters, so they remember that's what they used to have to wear. Well, actually it's a bit more modern. It used to be, there's a lot of red and a lot of grey. And I'm sure it's not quite as bad as it was when we were there. Oh, hello Mr. Magpie, give my best to your wife. And we're back at the tower again. So, that'll do for this evening. Bye bye. Mwah.